Hey, Sahir Galt here, and in this next segment of the Complete Guide to Chords, we're introducing the add 9. We begin simply from the triad, in this case, the major triad, and adding a major ninth interval from the root. And this gives us what we call a major add 9, a floating optimistic chord that's the most common type of add 9. We find it everywhere you have a major triad in the major key, which is on 1, 4, and 5. And we can build add 9s on the other triads too. There's minor add 9, just darker and more pensive, existing in the major key on 2 and 6. And we can also make augmented add 9, dreamy in a surreal way. And we don't find this anywhere in the major key because there are no augmented triads in the major key. It does exist in harmonic minor on 3. There's no reason you can't borrow it to use in major. And there's also diminished add 9, which often feels of shock and suspense. We've been adding the major ninth, giving us one new variation for each triad, but we can, in fact, add the other types of ninths. So for example, we can have the major triad with a minor ninth. Gives us the major add flat 9, a chord of catastrophe. The minor ninth is simply one semitone narrower than the major ninth, but we can also widen it by a semitone, and adding it to the major triad, we get the major add sharp 9, an electrifying chord with tremendous dissonance generated by the third clashing with the augmented ninth, which, when enharmonically respelled, we can see as the flattened third, creating a sense of tension about the quality of the chord, this push and pull between its minor and major characteristics, resulting in a kind of nuclear reaction of intense energy. On to the minor triad, adding to it the minor ninth, creating what we call, as you might expect, the minor add flat 9. A roiling, murky chord whose function is surprisingly varied owing to the implied dominant 7th chord embedded in its core. And this type of add 9 chord does exist in the major key, on 3. If we attempt to add the augmented ninth to the minor triad, we hear that it doesn't add anything new. And that's because the sharp 9 is, as we previously observed, identical to the flattened third that's already in a minor triad. So nothing new there. And looking at the diminished triad, we have the same situation with the augmented ninth, because diminished triads also have a flat 3. But we can add the minor ninth to the diminished triad, giving us the diminished add flat 9. And this collapsing black hole of dissonance exists diatonically in the major key, on 7. We get both variations with the augmented triad at the minor ninth, and we get the augmented add flat 9, which bears a striking resemblance to a minor major 7 in third inversion. We can see they're, in fact, identical, but for their spelling, and only context can tell you which is the appropriate name. The final remaining combination, augmented triad plus augmented ninth, gives us the augmented add sharp 9. And it's worth reiterating that there are alternate ways of interpreting these add 9 chords. For example, another way of looking at this collection of notes is a major 7th omitting the 5th with an add flat 13 in the bass. And it's worth noticing these types of connections because ultimately it broadens context and facilitates more adventurous use of all the chords you know. Any questions? Feel free to ask me. That's all for now. I'm Sahara Gold. I'll see you next time.